Thank you. The Security Council has just adopted Resolution 1881 that renews the mandate for the UN African Union peacekeeping force in Darfur. It was adopted unanimously. We very much welcome that. The resolution sets out some priorities within its existing mandate for the UNAMID force, in particular the protection of civilians and support for the humanitarian effort. There is still serious concern that we set out in the resolution about the security situation on the ground and about the rather slow progress in the political track, on the political process. But some of the recent developments in Sudan have been more encouraging. We welcome the improved cooperation between the Sudanese government and the UN Secretariat and the African Union on building up the UNAMID force. And we warmly welcome the acceptance by all parties of the recent panel arbitration ruling on the borders of Abyei. We think these are important steps, and we urge all parties to continue cooperation to ensure that peace can be restored to the whole of Sudan in the period ahead.
Where do Council members currently stand on the issue of Article 16? And also, I was wondering if I could ask what Britain's priorities are going to be during the presidency.
On the question of the ICC, the Council's position has been set out clearly in Resolution 1593. There has been some discussion of this, but there is no consensus on the Council about Article 16. At one stage, the African Union and Arab League were going to come and present some views to the Council on this. They haven't yet done so, but the Council will remain ready to discuss the issue. But there is no consensus at the moment, and you will have noticed that the resolution is silent on that particular issue. You asked about the British presidency of the Security Council in August. We take over the presidency on the 1st of August, on Saturday. The Council will have to approve a programme of work early next week, and we've been circulating some ideas for that. There are some things that will fall to us, in particular the renewal of the mandates for the UN missions in Iraq and the peacekeeping force in Lebanon. We will also be looking at the question of peacekeeping. We've been, with our French colleagues, improving the Security Council's scrutiny and strategic oversight of peacekeeping over the last 6 months, and we hope in our peacekeeping debate next week to bring these threads together in a presidential statement and to chart the way forward for the next 6 months of work in the Council on peacekeeping. There will also be a debate also next week on sexual violence. The Secretary-General submitted a report in July on this issue, which continues to be of major concern to all of us who are involved in conflict areas, particularly in the Congo and elsewhere, where systematic rape is used as a weapon of war and becomes endemic in societies. And the Secretary-General, to his credit, has taken a personal interest and seized this issue, and will be reflecting on that in the Council next week. And then lastly, I'd just highlight the question of the resolutions on Iraq during the Saddam era. There are still a number of obligations on Iraq, and we want to work with the other members of the Council to try to normalise Iraq's position in within the international community. That will take some work, both by the government in Iraq, by the UN. There needs to be cooperation with the government in Kuwait for the issues that relate back to 1990, but those issues will be considered by the Council during the course of August. Of course, there will be other issues as well. We don't know exactly what will be coming up, but there will be other issues to discuss probably during the month of August. It's programmed to be a quiet month, but you can never quite tell.
Ambassador, when you say that those issues just mentioned will be taken up during the presidency of the UK in August, will there be specific consultations called on them? Will there be consideration of a draft resolution? It doesn't indeed take a draft or adoption of a resolution to lift the remaining restrictions off of Iraq.
Well, we have a report from the Secretary-General on these outstanding resolutions. The Council needs to consider the way forward on that. No one has brought forward a draft resolution yet. I think there's consultations that are required first between members of the Council and involving the governments in both Baghdad and Kuwait.
Well, is it clear that legally, I guess you could say, that a further resolution is needed to remove the restrictions or to act in a way that Iraq is requesting?
Certainly further decisions will be required by the Security Council, that's correct.
Do you expect to consider the situation in Myanmar, particularly given the verdict that's expected tomorrow?
Well, let's wait and see what the verdict is. The Secretary General spoke on this yesterday. I think you know there's a range of views in the Security Council on this issue. We will obviously be following this very closely, and we'll need to consider what, if any, steps should be taken in the Security Council once we know what the verdict is.
Can I ask one thing on Sri Lanka? It's reported that the UK abstained on this IMF vote. What steps, but it was approved, what steps, what is the UK or can they do about the situation of these IDPs that are in these camps and have not been released?
Well, you'll have to ask my colleagues in Washington about the situation at the IMF board. The loan has been approved, as you say. Our main concern in Sri Lanka now is twofold. Is first of all to help those hundreds of thousands of people who were forcibly displaced by the fighting to be able to return to their homes and resume a normal life in Sri Lanka. And secondly, we look to the government to initiate a political process with all Sri Lankans so that the legitimate concerns of minorities in Sri Lanka, in particular the Tamil minority, can be reflected in the governance structures. The government of Sri Lanka has defeated the LTTE militarily. It now needs to establish a durable political settlement to ensure that the grievances do not re-emerge.
Mr. Ambassador,
Yeah.
the resolution called all parties in Sudan to participate in the peace talks.
Yes.
Are you going to invite Abdel Wahid from Paris or not?
Well, he is not only invited, he is under some pressure to attend, and we expect